Hey everyone, Alistair here, and I'm back with another Tumblr Ask Tuesday, which is where I find ask prompts from tumblr.com and I answer them in video format. So here we go. This week's series of questions is about books. So various questions about different books and my opinions. Here we go. Question 1. What is your favorite book? Excuse me. My favorite book is, without a doubt, The Great Gatsby. I love this book. I love F. Scott Fitzgerald. This is the same copy of the book that I've had since high school, so it's pretty well read. Question 2. What is the last book you read? The last book I read was Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire. I am not quite done with it. I've got about a few chapters left to go. But then it'll be done and I'll move on to the second in the series. Question 3. What is the worst book you've ever read? I don't really remember. Probably one of the books I was forced to read in high school. I don't really remember. Sorry. Question 4. Top 7 book characters. Probably anyone from this book. This book is hilarious. 5. What is your favorite genre? My favorite book genre is horror. I read a lot of horror, a lot of Stephen King, and a lot of H.P. Lovecraft. Question 6. Book you cried the hardest reading. The only book I ever remember crying after I read it was The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. I didn't cry very hard. I mean, I teared up because the ending is kind of sad. When I was younger, I had an audiobook for Where the Red Fern Grows. Pretty sure I cried for that too, but that was a long time ago, so I'm not exactly sure. Question 8. Which book characters do you most relate to? I actually don't relate to many characters, if any. I don't relate to fictional characters in general most of the time, so I don't really have an answer for that. Sorry. Question 9. Favorite author. My favorite author is probably Stephen King or F. Scott Fitzgerald, but probably leaning more towards Stephen King. Pretty sure I get that from my dad. My dad loves Stephen King novels. Question 10. Do you ever judge books by their covers? I don't think that I do. I typically judge them by what the summary on the back or on one of the inside flaps says. I don't think I've ever judged a book by the cover. Question 11. What is your favorite quote from a book? This is coming back to The Great Gatsby here. My favorite quote from a book, I actually did a project on this when I read The Great Gatsby in high school. The quote is, "God, I'm sophisticated." And I really like that quote because of the context surrounding it, and if you haven't read The Great Gatsby, I suggest you do, and when you find that quote, I think you'll see why it's my favorite. Question 12. Which book do you recommend to friends and family the most? I probably recommend this book, God's Debris, a thought experiment. It was written by the author of the Dilbert comics, which I think is really interesting, Scott Adams. It's a really interesting book about the creation of the world and God and everything. This is actually a discarded library book. But I do suggest reading this book to everyone that I meet ever if they ask for a book recommendation. It's this one. Question 13. Which book is so special to you that you don't share it with others? I don't really do that. If I enjoyed a book, I recommend it to people. I can't think of any books that I think are so special that I don't want anyone else to read because I enjoy sharing books with other people and sharing my interests with other people. Question 14. Do you have any signed books? I don't, actually. I wouldn't want any, I don't think. Not if it was a book that I actually wanted to read. Question 15. Have you met any authors? No. Unfortunately, I have not. Question 16. Buy books new, used, or go to the library? I I'll buy a book if it's new or used, depending on like where I am. If I learn about a new book that I think is really interesting and I know I'm gonna want to read it, I might buy it online. If I'm at a used bookstore like a Half Price Books and I see a book that I've wanted for a while, I'm not really sure if I'm actually going to enjoy it, but it's cheap, I'll buy it there. I don't like going to libraries though. It's weird, but I don't like the concept of sharing books. I don't like lending my books to people, stuff like that. It just kind of bugs me. I've had an experience when I was in middle school where I lent someone a book that I loved, and they returned it with the binding all curled and broken and scuffed up, and like pages were torn, and I don't like sharing books, and that's what a library is. It's just a massive book share. So I don't really use libraries very often. Question 17. Where is your favorite place to read? Well, my favorite place to read is probably in my bed or laying on a couch or something, just somewhere comfortable where I can recline and not have to worry about a lot of noise. If there's a lot of noise going on, I can't focus. I end up rereading the same stuff over and over again without progressing at all. Question 18. Prefer books set in the past or the future? I like either setting for a book. It really depends on how well it's written and if it's over something that I actually want to read the story-wise. I don't have a preference. I do like history, but I also like future settings or apocalyptic settings. It really just depends on the story itself. Question 19. What 5 elements would your ideal book have? I don't really get this question. I don't have an ideal book, and if I did, I don't know if I would actually enjoy a book like that. It would need to be a horror story, probably set in some other world where more fantastic things can happen, but nothing too crazy. I don't really know, see, because it kind of contradicts itself. Because typically I don't like horror stories that are set in anywhere other than the now point in time. Occasionally in the past, but then it's a kind of a different type of horror story at that point. I don't like time travel, so you can't really have 5 elements that I would like in different books in one book, I don't think. Question 20. Do you ever hope to publish your own book? For a while I wanted to, kind of dwindling now. I used to do a lot of writing, mostly short stories in the horror genre, but as of late I've not been writing very often, and nothing that I think is even close to being publishable, really. It's kind of just a jumbled mess of me trying to get thoughts on paper without actual organization. So at this time, no, I don't want to publish a book. Maybe in the future if I can actually get some of my writing muse situated and handled. Question 21. Do you prefer standalone or series? Typically I don't like book series because I have to buy more books. I've read all the Harry Potter series, probably mostly because my dad and my brothers, or one of my brothers, read them as well. So they were at the house so I could just read them. And that's the case most of the time. If I read a book series, it's because we already have most of the books in the series and I don't have to go get them, the other volumes. Like I read Percy Jackson the Lightning Thief, the first book, and I really enjoyed it, but I don't have any of the other books, so I'm probably not going to read them. So I guess I'd prefer standalone. Question 22. Do you mark, highlight, or dog-ear your books, or do you keep them in perfect condition? If it's a brand new book, like I bought it brand new, I won't dog-ear it, I won't mark on it or highlight it if I can help it. I hate writing in books. It was a problem in high school when I had to do annotations. I'm not exactly sure why. If it's a used book, that's already got folded edges or dog ears or tears or highlights, it doesn't bother me. If I bought it at like a half-price books or a used bookstore and it's already marked or damaged or whatever, I don't have a problem with that. It doesn't bother me, but I personally will not mark or fold pages in a book. Question 23. Hardbacks or paperbacks? I prefer paperbacks. A lot of the books that I read are paperbacks. Mostly probably they're just cheaper. Paperback books are cheaper. And they're easier to hold in your hands, I think. I mean, if you want a book that lasts longer, you should get a hardback. But really, it just depends on availability for me. Availability and cost. Question 24. Do you watch any booktubers? I don't know what that is. I'm assuming it's people that either read books or review books on YouTube. No, I don't watch any of them. If y'all have any suggestions, feel free to put them down below and I'll check them out. Sounds like something I might be interested in. Question 25. Have you ever read blank? So this is a question intended for Tumblr, for the person to supply the book. If you have any questions about any books that you think I may or may not have read, feel free to leave them in the comments and I will get back to you on them. Question 26. Do you like twist endings? I don't dislike twist endings, but I can't think of any book that's like, oh, what a twist! While I was reading it, I don't think. But, I mean, twist endings work if you do it right. Question 27. Do you reread books? This is the only book I've ever been able to reread. I don't like rereading books if I can remember what happens in them, typically, because it just ruins the experience for me. So this is so far the only book that I've reread. A long time ago I started reading this book but never finished it. So it's been long enough that I don't remember how it goes. So that's why I've almost finished reading this one again. And I have read this book before, but have been yet unable to reread it, unfortunately. I would love to. And this is like the third copy of this book that I've owned, because I've lent out 2 other copies and they never got returned. So this book is not brand new, it's new to me, but I've yet to reread it, and I hope to in the future. Question 28. E-readers or physical copies of books? I prefer physical copies of books. I've tried reading on e-readers. My brother has one, and I tried to read a book that was on that he had, and I didn't enjoy it. Sometimes I'll read on my computer, but I just don't prefer it. Question 29. A book that makes you feel comforted? I don't think there's really any book that's made me feel comforted before. I've read a lot of books, but I really can't think of anything that made me feel particularly comforted. Question 30. Would you rather read any ending that makes you feel happy or sad? I don't know. I don't particularly enjoy feeling sad, so I don't know if I would read a book just for the ending to make me sad. I read The Fault in Our Stars, and when I was getting to the end, I was hoping above all hope that it would be a happy ending. And when it wasn't, I was bummed out, because that was like the effect that the book had. So I guess I would rather have a happy ending, but happy endings typically are all wrapped up in like a bow at the end, and they're all like, oh yay! And that's not a very satisfying ending either, in my opinion. So really, I think it just depends on the book. Question 31. Favorite villain in a book? In a lot of the books that I read, I can't actually think of a villain, which is weird, but I'm trying and I'm not coming up with anything. So I'm not exactly sure a favorite villain. The only villain I can think of is Voldemort from Harry Potter, but I don't particularly like him as a villain, so I don't really know. Sorry. Question 32. Do you like to write reviews when you finish a book? No. I don't. I'll tell people about a book after I finished reading it, but I don't write reviews. That's outside of my wheelhouse, I think. Question 33. Do you experience book hangovers? I assume that's when you finished a book and you just keep thinking about it after it's done and you can't get over it. There's always a period of time after I finished a book that I enjoyed that I want to tell everyone in the world about it. But if that's what that is, then yes. If it's something else, I don't know. Question 34. Favorite book covers. I don't really have a favorite book cover. I don't think. I mean, I like this book cover. I think it's cool. There's a rabbit on it. I like the cover of this book because it's space. I can't think of any particular book that has had a cover that I've just adored. I have a lot of decorative books that have really nice covers. They're hardbound with the gilded pages and embossed covers, but those are all really pretty. Can't really pick a favorite of those. Question 35 is a question for you guys, I think. Send me book recommendations. If you have a book that you absolutely love and you want me to read it, tell me about it. Tell me about it and I will do my best to check it out. I would love to hear all of your recommendations. That's all. That's all the questions for me this week, I guess. Look forward to the next Tumblr Tuesday next week. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a nice day, month, year, and life. And that's all. Bye.